Good morning and welcome to Mytech U, the April edition of 2013, where today we're going to be talking about process mapping for small business. One of the things that our customers have come to learn from Mytech is that we try and bring relevant technology and relevant practices to them. We found that Mytech is a microcosm or very similar to a lot of our customers and the same challenges we have in running our business. And so when we find something that works, we want to be able to expose and present that to our customers. And we're very fortunate today to be led by Michael Frascone, who was brought on to Mytech under a year ago, but he's already had a dramatic impact in how we operate and how we're able to drive process and change and mapping and consistency and training of our process with our staff that's enabled actually everyone to be more efficient, happier, and have a means by which they can communicate how their ideas can help improve the way we operate. So with that said, Michael is going to grace us with his experience and knowledge and what he's been able to do in past lives, his education, as well as do some demonstrations of the tools that Michael has brought to our attention. So with that said, Michael, I look forward to hearing what you have to offer for us.
Thank you, Nate. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. This is going to be a simple approach to process, but I just want to forewarn you, it's not a sales pitch, although it may seem like that. I'm very passionate about the tools I use and what I do here. So Nathan, if you'll be so kind as to keep me in line and stop me if I'm going off track. I tend to sell a lot just by my nature. What the objective is in this presentation and my demo today is to educate on what process management is for small business, primarily through what we are able to achieve at Mytech and how our model is an example of how we can achieve this. So just to give you an overview quickly, this is our agenda for the hour. I'll go through a brief introduction on who I am, and then I'm going to jump right into some process modeling basics. We have a methodology that I've brought to Mytech that it's quite simple. It's not as complex as some of the, what Toyota has done with Sigma and things like that, which I'll get into a little bit later. This is very easy process to follow, provided you have some musts and some criteria taken care of. I'll then go into where I've listed Exel demo. Exel is our process mapping and modeling tool. Again, not a sales pitch, but this is a tool that I use. But I'll show you that in a little bit. So then how is our process management working at Mytech? How are we making it all work? How are we ensuring everyone is engaged in the process and that we're able to keep it living and breathing? And I think that's really the critical and key component. And at the end of the call, there will be a call to action for the participants. So let me just give you some starters on who I am. I joined Mytech just over 6 months ago. My title here is Process Improvement Director, and my job is fundamentally to drive process improvement, capture, execution, implementation, and ensure we are doing things in the most efficient way we can. And through that is all about the engagement with the process at every level in the organization. How I got here, in addition to experience, is my education. I earned an MBA in 2011, and my focus in my MBA was business process management. And I brought that throughout my research through the 2-year program. My background goes back more than 10, 12 years specifically in process management. I have done several different process projects for large and small companies. A large company example is Lawson Software. I took their course turnover process when they had acquired a company out of Sweden, and we had 3 international locations. We had one in the UK, we had one in Sweden, and one in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we needed to align processes since they were all using the same system for everything, and there was a lot of contentious finger-pointing and difficulties, and they couldn't get the staff on board. So through just a few process collaboration meetings and producing some decent documented outputs, we were able to resolve their differences in very short order, and they are still following that process to this day, which is pretty exciting. On a smaller scale, my last job, I was an operations manager for a similar managed services IT firm, and one of the issues I saw out of the gate joining that company was their day sales outstanding. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's just basically the average number of days it takes a client to pay their bill. When I started at my last company, our days sales outstanding, that number was an average of 72 days. Through proactive process management, we were able to bring that down to 28 days inside of about 60 days time. So that was our little success story. I have also done a lot of training of process implementation, specifically to the tool that I'll be demonstrating. And I have also taught this tool in an undergraduate, in an undergraduate course for business majors at Concordia University last year. So I have a bit of a wide variety of a background there, and it is why I'm here. So let me just talk to you a little bit about process management, just to sort of set the framework. What it isn't, it's not just checklists. Process management, people tend to think, okay, they just have a task list and it's checklists. It's not just that. It's not also something that you document and leave on a shelf. We hear often in this industry, in the world today, in business today, where people talk about where they've documented processes, but they don't know if people are using them or if people are following them. So it becomes really important that it's accessible. What I say process is, it's truly just a collection of steps that connect people and systems. Oftentimes we have ERP packages that are transactional databases, for example, and they manage about 20% of what people actually do. So you really need to combine all of those things, right? What I think is key to success with process is user engagement, right? Having everybody involved with the process at every level and having the ability to modify and change your process is critical to its success. Outcomes, of course. These are things that we have realized here, and I have realized in every effort I've been involved in. Efficient throughput. You can continue to get continuous improvement in your efficiency and throughput through user involvement, where everyone is able to see what their impact is on the entire process in the organization. And through that efficient throughput, you realize cost savings. Not only do you realize cost savings as a matter of project management, but you can also make that a process goal. An example would be if you want to reduce supplier costs or shipping costs, or reduce costs of hourly wage costs. You make that your goal and you process map around it. So there's all kinds of ways you can realize cost savings. What do you get when you have consistent process management? Of course, you're going to get happier customers. They're going to be receiving things. The expectation will be set. They will know what they're getting, and they'll be much happier. And if you have efficiencies gained, you have more resources, you have happier customers, which in turn also means more customers. This one is the most important one that we have realized first here at Mytech, is that by mapping our processes and by documenting them and by having everyone engaged with our processes, people are happier to do their work, and they're more productive. They don't have as much time wasted as they did fixing things and chasing things to manage exceptions.
And Michael, hey, on that point, I definitely want to relay to the folks that are listening right now, as well as the folks who will be watching in the future on the recorded version, that has been, for me anyway, one of the unintended byproducts. I didn't realize the power of that by having the expectation sets and the steps to follow and the ways in which people are supposed to connect with the other people and hand off and receive the next steps, how people just really enjoy the fact that they know exactly what they need to do. There's no confusion. There's no, it's just, so the challenges that I'm sure all of us at some point have had to deal with, as far as not necessarily having a clear-cut understanding of what you need to do, how you should hand it off, what expectations you should be setting. This has enabled, it's amazing the impact that it's actually had on our staff that have engaged in the processes that we've defined in the last, over 6 months or so. So that's a really, I appreciate that you put that on there, but that's a really powerful one that I did not expect to come out of this, our engagement process.
Yes, it's last but not least on the list, for sure. Thank you, Nate. Interrupt anytime. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm just going to start and how I normally preface the whole idea of training process from this methodology. And the thing to get everyone's head around it is just to explain it quite simply is one of the major achievements that you can get through good process engagement, I'm going to use that word often, is process engagement, which to me is a better way to say project management. What you have here, normally under normal business environments, you have management as the top layer, and then you have these silos of departments of what you do, whether it's the sales department, production, logistics, finance, what have you. Normally, this is a normal business model, but when we do this kind of methodology where you build end-to-end processes, you have the ability with this user engagement I keep referring to, is that everybody has that ability to see end-to-end, and you'll all see that momentarily as I delve into our demo. Before I do, there's just a few things that I think are musts for an organization to be able to implement this type of methodology and it's simple, but there are requirements. The first one, of course, top-level commitment. Now, that's not to say that top level is going to say, well, we are committed and we are ordering our staff to follow these processes. This is about accountability even at the top level, where everybody says they are going to do something and they do it. And I will get to the compliance of that later on, but keep that in mind, that commitment to manage process, to engage with process, has to exist at every single level in the organization for it to have the best success. Secondly, of course, as I just said, user involvement. If your users are not involved in the process, they are not going to have as much buy-in, right? These are all very simple, logical things, but it has to be stated, it has to be said, and you must have these in order for it to be the best. The final thing for me that is a must is tools. We talk about tools that we use in our business, whether they're an ERP package or whether we're using spreadsheets or whether we're using things on shared drives or just a web interface. They're all tools. But the most important thing is that you have to put them together. You have to be able to link them all together. So it's critical, and I will talk about the tool we use I'll be demonstrating that, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm selling you this tool. I'm telling you you would need a tool. There are many out there. This happens to be the one that I prefer, and you'll see why. So the other thing is that's a must for me as the architect, if you will, the person who's collecting the process and producing the output. One of the skills that I must have is listening, and that's critical because normally you're trying to map everyone's ideas and processes, but you have to listen. You have to listen because there are different people at different levels in the organization, so you really have to hone that skill of being able to pick up on where people's points of pain are and what they're trying to articulate in getting the process out of their door, if you will, or passing it on to the next department or individual. So that's also critical. I'm going to just take you quickly through process modeling in 4 easy steps, right? The first one, you would do what we call discovery workshops. What those are could be just simple meetings, but I'll explain a little bit further. What they really basically do is they get everyone to agree on what they should be doing or what they are doing, just so that everyone can see and understand the flow, what is getting done. The second step is then your documentation. Through these discovery workshops, you're creating documentation, right? And how easy is it to produce? How good is your documentation? It's not just those checklists. Again, it's all-encompassing, end-to-end, A to Z in your process. The third piece is your compliance. How do you ensure that people are actually following the process? That's always a common complaint when you go to, when I'm in my BPM groups on LinkedIn. People are always writing and saying, how do we get people to do what we say we do? I'm going to show you what we're doing at Mytech, and it's not that complicated, but it's doable. And then, of course, once you have people following the process, how do you keep it going? How do you keep it living and breathing so you have continuous improvement as a part of it, because that will avoid deviation. If people are not able to follow the process and it's not constantly improving, they're not going to trust it, so they'll start deviating from it and you'll find gaps. So this will maintain, if you're continuously improving that process and making it accessible, they will maintain that engagement. Okay? Again, Nathan, just stop me or interrupt me if you have any questions along the way. Let's talk about the discovery workshop. Really, quite simply, is you're pulling everyone in, the stakeholders who are part of this process. These are the people you pull into these meetings and workshops to pull the information together. And it's really quite interesting how when you first sit down with the users that are creating a process or just capturing one that already exists and putting in changes to it, that first conversation, when people start talking, you really get a lot of benefit from that because you're starting to break down those barriers. This is where those silos start to disappear. You're also getting cross-training even occurs naturally because you have different users from all over the organization. So you're getting this ability to educate everyone on the end-to-end of what your business is doing, and you're going to get buy-in when people are involved. It's just, I'm going to keep reiterating how important that is, okay? Normally in this discovery workshop, I'll point out that with this tool, it's recommended that you have one person, such as myself, driving the conversation, asking the probing questions, and making sure that conditions are met, and if there's questions to be raised or loops that need to be created in the process, you have somebody that kind of drives it so that you're keeping that objective of A to Z, building that process, but then you also normally have a scribe, somebody who's doing the collecting. As a small company, we just have me doing that, and it's working just fine. It's just I tend to do a lot more whiteboarding, and then I create it in this product that you will see momentarily.
And Michael, I want to interject on that point because I imagine that, you know, having process is something that is not new. I mean, the idea of it is something that's not new to business, and I'm sure every one listening right now or on that will be watching in the future probably has some processes, some level of documentation, maybe a tool that they use. But I just want to iterate that one of the last points you made, which is that reinforce, because we here at Mytech, before you were here, we definitely had some processes documented, but they were on a piece of paper that were stored somewhere that wasn't necessarily trained on. We didn't have a good way of compliance. And we had initiatives that people were working on, but the problem is, and the key change that happened is the fact that the processes were originally on the plate of, say, a department head. And that department head, who has people that they're supervising and plenty of other items on their plate, it was just one of those back burner issues that they wanted to drive it forward, but they just never really had the bandwidth to do so. So, and you mentioned being able to have someone that was dedicated to drive things forward, and I think that is really the key takeaway for this, and that's been the definitely key takeaway and the difference in having you solely be here as the driving factor behind all of these processes and able to work with the different department heads as opposed to having that be another burden that's on the department head's plate. So that's just something that we witnessed at our organization, and I'm sure that other folks can relate as well. But I really appreciate that, that is what you are doing, and it's been a huge impact.
Thank you. Yes, and again, the more important piece is the fact that I know how to use the tool and draw things up and document, but it is about driving and having quarterly goals and building in the processes, and that's what I'm primarily responsible for, is making sure we get these things engaged, and that is the driving force. So going through, stepping back to the documenting of the process is really, it's kind of a three-step deal, and first of all, you're really developing it in this living and breathing environment. You're increasing the detail as you go. But when you first sit down, and as I will show you, you start at a high level. You want to get just the basics first. Let's just agree that it starts here and it ends here, and these are the basic steps that it takes to get there. And then you review and you revise and you change it as you need to. But if you start by documenting the process as is, so you're able to capture the true picture of what you're doing, you're able to start with, as we say, like a line in the sand and say, let's just say we start here. This is how we know we're doing it. We have a complete view of our current processes. And when you have that complete view of your current processes, you're able to redesign and improve it and make it better than it should be. You're able to create your own best practice and optimize. And I'm going to drill down into how we do that, what that circle is for us, how we cycle it back, and how it stays living and breathing so that improvement continues to happen. So I'll jump into the final piece. This is the piece that everyone seems to, that I find more people find it to be more of a challenge. However, it's really quite simple for us here at Mytech. What we do is, number one, you make it accessible. For people to be engaged with it, they have to know where it is. Like Nate was just saying, we've had processes in the past. They were on a piece of paper, and they were in a drawer, or they were on a shared drive somewhere. We didn't really have a consistency because of the fact no one was owning it and driving it. But if you make the process accessible, easy to get to, and it's right there for people, the chances that they're going to engage are much higher. You make everyone accountable. So I'll show you what we're doing in that instance through the demo. making sure everyone knows that they are accountable and they're signed off, which you'll see later. And finally, if you're going to have this continuous improvement, you have to be able to make changes quickly and deploy that process very, very instantaneously so that people can depend on that quick turnaround. So they're not looking at the process documentation like, oh, well, this is old. It's always got to be up to date, and you've got to be able to do it quickly. And I'll show you how we do that.
Michael, can you speak to that point? Because I'll tell you, that's definitely been, that particular piece has also been the area where we've seen most of our, a lot of engagement. And that's how you also have been able to tell how people are engaging, or whether they are engaging, is whether or not they're coming to you with some of these challenges or changes. I don't know if you can speak to, because they're coming to you, so can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, and I will actually be showing a little bit of that on how we're keeping the continuous improvement working. I have that at the end of the demo. But what it is in true ITIL fashion, which I will show, we have created a process for managing our process. What that means is when people are looking at their process, the whole point of what we're doing here, it's not just to say we have it documented and people are following. I keep referring back to that engagement. It's so that people from every level of the organization look at how we deliver our services or how we bring products to our customers. It's everyone's job to engage and look and study and analyze how they're doing, what they're doing as impact on the rest of the process or the rest of the organization. So what people have in our accessible processes, they can raise a ticket for me, which goes to my change advisory board in true ITIL fashion, and it's a tracking mechanism so that I can create more discovery workshops if I need to, or if it's a minor change. I even have people raising tickets if they see instructions need to be a little better, or they have an improvement to the instructions, or something has changed. And it always helps because this kind of feedback and the tickets that people are raising are doing exactly what Nathan said. It's showing that they're really paying attention, and they're making themselves accountable and people that they're handing it off to, and they're setting the next people up for success, which is one of our core values, by doing it this way. So it really kind of ties into who we are and what our culture is about helping each other and making sure everybody's got what they need. So I hope that addressed your point, Nate.
Yeah, it was really to reinforce the fact that it's been eye-opening, because you've come to me several times and said that you can tell that people are engaging because they're coming to you with questions, they're coming to you with suggestions, and it's been a unique experience to see not only just rolling out some process saying, here, please follow this path, but seeing, as you mentioned, every person in the organization that touches it at different points, touches any given process at different points, is actually engaging, and they're making suggestions, and they're offering ways that we can do things better. And because you are able to respond quickly, it reinforces their desire to engage further whenever they see something that could be improved.
Absolutely, 100%. Okay. Now I'm going to get into a demo, and again, like I said, this isn't me selling this tool, although it may sound like that, but what I want to express is, granted, you may like this tool and go check it out and may want to buy it, but the purpose is if you are going to be looking for tools to use, hopefully what I'm going to demonstrate for you will give you just a little bit of insight as to the functionality that we use, and if you're looking at other tools, it might give you some help in selecting a tool of choice. But again, this is just a tool we prefer, and I've been using this tool now for about 10 years. The reason why I like it, from any business analyst standpoint, there is no need for technical expertise to use this tool. Quite simply, it's really fundamentally based on what I just pulled up here, is a process in this tool. So I'm framing this around this tool. A process is made up of stages of work. And by stages of work, it could be something as simple as creating a sales order. So if you have a customer service rep has a stage of work, it comes to them and they have to create a sales order. And the role is customer service rep. So you can see the role is tied to the stage. All right? So if that customer service rep in his stage has to provide a sales order, maybe the tasks are one or two things. One, look up customer and system. Ask the question, is it a customer? Yes. If not a customer, set them up. The next task might be enter sales order in system, and final task might be email sales order or confirm sales order. So you'll see that stages can be kind of an approximation of what is being done, and there will be one or more tasks to complete that stage of work. And all you need to know is that a role is assigned to the stage. It's just that simple. Now, if there's questions, certainly I think you can type them in or tap Nate, and he can interrupt me, and I'm happy to break and answer questions. But let me pull over the actual tool that we use. Again, it's called Exel. What I'm going to do, this is right out of the box. I'm going to create a brand new process model just to kind of give you the feel for the ease of use of functionality, so that when you're looking for any process tools, you might want to make sure you do that. So I'm going to create a brand new model, and I'll call it Mytech U Web. Right? Brand new, going to create this model, and right out of the box, I have the ability to create an enterprise, create default notes and things like that. It's not important. I'm just going to create a user note that says instructions. So at every task or stage, I can add a note that says instructions, because what I'm trying to provide is instructions in my process. So I'm just going to go back to it and create a new process, quite simply. Like I said, it's process, stage, tasks, and roles. So the process, we're going to, just as an example, let's say I'm now in my discovery workshop, and I pull up my tool here, and I want people to tell me a process. We're going to map out, as an example, and I use this one usually when I train how to use the tool, is a leave request. So you're going to say, let's define our process that we're going to model, and that would be a leave request. Keep in mind, what you're seeing today is a model of the demo of modeling the process. This product also has the capability, which we are not even going to consider even here for quite some time, but you have the ability to audit or to automate, so that you can create task lists for people and do escalations all built into the system and do all kinds of fancy things. But for the most basic, for small companies, to use just the modeling piece is more cost effective, and it will get the job done. So I'm going to jump right into this process, and I'm going to start building it. The tool allows us to do it two different ways. You can create like a laundry list of your stages and tasks and then organize them on the visual side, or you can do it all in making the list here, or you can build it as a drawing. I like to draw, so I'm going to do it as a drawing. It becomes much more useful when you're trying to show somebody what their process might look like. So I'm going to throw in my starts and stops, beginning of the process, right? And remember when I said we start with a process, then we have stages. Now, when I show you a couple of examples, these icons that you see here can be changed and customized at any time you want. And you can also create your own icons and put them into the system. So it's very much how you want to visualize. But I'm just going to use the defaults right out of the box, because that's the point of this, is that it's easy and simple to use. So let's just say in a leave request, I'm sitting in a room with a manager, someone from HR, and maybe one or two employees that are engaged in this process. So we would throw out questions like, so what do you do when you need to do a leave request? Someone says, well, you have to submit the request. You have to fill out the form, fill out leave request, right? Maybe you have to add another stage. You have to do a manager review of the leave request, right? That's another stage. I can draw them in here, or I can add them automatically here. And notice it's the same on either side. So if I want to continue to add more stages, I could add them here and say, what else? And people just start giving me the list. Say, okay, maybe there's an approval stage, approve request. And there's some things that get done in the approval stage. Maybe there's a deny request, right? So you're starting to see just a few simple things that they have to do. If the manager reviews it, maybe he has to ask a question. I'll go back over here and just kind of put them in order. So let's just say the employee fills out the request, right? Oh, I've got to add the roles. Remember I said that roles were important, and you assign roles to the stage. So I'm going to just go ahead and add the roles of the people in the room. Like I said, you have a manager, you have maybe all staff or employee, and you have HR manager or HR as an approval stage. So now I have these roles, right? So I could drag and drop them if I want using the tool. It's very much Windows-based. It's very easy. Training on this tool takes about 4 to 6 hours, which is not bad. So manager's going to be doing the review, and all staff would be filling out the leave. You can see that we're just kind of, HR might be approving the request or denying the request. You can see that I'm just kind of throwing it together rather quickly, and then maybe ask the question, request approved, yes or no, right? So put that out of the way, do a manager review, and maybe the manager first has to approve even before submitting, so you can actually reuse this. You can kind of see it's pretty simple so far, right? Have another one over here. So when we go HR, it's either going to approve or deny. I can make that look like it could be done as an either-or thing, and maybe use a fork, and you can get a pretty descriptive-looking process going. All right, we move it along. It's going to go there, and they're going to do one of these two things. Either they're going to approve or they're going to deny the request. Okay, not quite as pretty as I normally make it, but in a pinch, it works. As long as these flow lines are working, it shows the flow and I guess I could actually just take that out of there. Shows just the flow of the process in quite simple format. Obviously, through some more discussion, it might get a little more complex. But just to give you the idea of how easy this is, and then to produce documentation is really the purpose here before I get into how and show you a couple of our processes. So now, remember, I said the stages of work were just the basic steps, right? So basically, they're going to fill out a request. The manager will review yes or no, and if he passes it off to HR, either they're going to approve or deny, or maybe they have to ask the question. But quite simply, let's just focus on the first stage. Well, in the filling out the leave request, what exactly does an employee do? So you would ask those questions, okay? So does the employee, maybe he has to go and get a document from a shared drive. So grab template maybe from shared drive, right? Something like that. I know the spelling is a little off, but you get the picture. So they do that. Maybe they fill out the form. You can do another documentation here. Fill out form. Then we're going to go email to manager, or whatever mechanism you might have. Maybe it's all done in a system, but you can call out that system, and I'll show you some of that on some of our processes where we are using various systems and various different types of software and applications. So you can see here, and this is the reason why I just did this to make these all come together, is you notice how in this tool we have things written in red. That means there's something incomplete still. So as you fill out a process in this tool and as you build it, it starts letting you know when things are complete and done well. You also have the mechanism within the tool to check your links and to double check your model to make sure the business architecture has no problem. And when I talk about the business architecture, that has to do with how the document output works and how automation could work potentially. That means everything you're doing here, it knows what you're doing, and it's going to have dependencies built right in. You don't need any programming experience to set that up. So what you can do now, remember I added that note, that user note that said instructions. So let's just say maybe we want to have instructions. I can go right back to where I was designing this, and this task, maybe you want to provide instructions to the user. So I have my user notes right here. Okay, I can go in, it's a word editor. So I can put in images, hyperlinks, written instructions. You can set defaults on your machine to how you want the font to look and all of those things. So it's very, very easy to use. So maybe you want to tell the user, go to, and you insert a hyperlink. So maybe it's just a shared drive, but you can also just go and use your own hyperlink help right here and go to the shared drive, go look for it, and find what you want to access, right? So you just can, I'll just find one. We'll just do a document, for example, right? So you could put in your hyperlink there, follow form instructions, whatever you want to input for instructions. So really quite simply, in a matter of one meeting, you can say we've at least got the high level, and we did put some details and instructions. Let's see what that looks like from a documentation standpoint, right? So we're going to go ahead and publish this, and we're going to take it, and I'm going to show you this is how you publish. You can do this, and what we use is an HTML output because we load ours to a SharePoint site, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. You can also produce this documentation in Excel. I'll just back up one second. You can produce it in Excel. You can produce it in Word. You can produce it in an online, hotkey HTML help. And you also have all the different options, and you can customize any of those outputs. You can create filters and whatnot. So, but just out of the box, remember, I haven't made any of those adjustments. You don't have to. You can tweak those later as you drill down to your more process changes and such. So I'm just going to do it as a one-page website, which is defaulted, already set up when you buy this or when you first open it. So I'm going to do, let's just say, webinar. As you see, I don't have that in there previously, so I'm making this right now. I'm going to open up the document, and this is what users will see, right? Now, keep in mind, we've got a table of contents. You've got a table of figures. All of this is automatically added. You also have an index at the end. The importance of that is so that you know that anything that's required for any Lean Six Sigma initiative, ISO 9000 or 14000, any of those, any lean manufacturing, SOX compliance is also doable here. So it takes care of all of your documentation to any company that wants to certify your documents. This will be in compliance. So what you have in the HTML and as well as in Word, you have the ability to drill down. Notice on the one that I added instructions that the icon will have a little note post next to it. But you can actually drill down in each step. So where I had said fill out leave request, I can click on it, and it brings me to that stage of work and those tasks. If this was a longer list, you can already see what the drill down would look like. But when you drill down, it becomes the top of the page. I can also pull up my document. So it's very easy. You're done, right? You can build out role descriptions in here. You can build out an entire hierarchy of your business organization. However, like I said, from simplicity, we have focused here at Mytech on just one process at a time, taking out the processes that we most need and that will be the most beneficial for us to get in alignment. So let me just show you now. I mean, we're coming to, we've only got about 5-10 more minutes. So I'm going to show you how we manage compliance. And that is done on this website. This is our SharePoint site that I manage, and it has a little bit of instructions. And I think this line has been critical for Mytech because we don't want people to be compliant or complacent, on a process. We want them to be engaged and always looking at how they can improve it. But when a process has an obstacle and somebody's stuck and they can't move on, that's our tagline. Always remember, humanize that exception, own it, make the phone calls, see the people. That's constant in our training to our staff. But here is the mechanism for them when they want to provide those changes. Remember I mentioned saying, if you have just, even if it's an improvement to the instruction in there that you know if somebody were to sit in your seat tomorrow and follow this process, would they be able to follow it? That's some of the direction we give on how people are engaged. So I'm going to pull up our RMA process. This doesn't involve a whole lot of people in the organization, but as you can see, I'm going to back out of there. Okay. So one of the things we do in our processes, you can see as one of those automatic notes that's just already in there, is our mission, vision, and values. We always want our staff to be very present with our mission, vision, and values. So drilling down into our return goods process, or we call it our RMA, Return Material Authorization. I worked with finance. I worked with our depot engineers and inside sales and our field services, everywhere where it comes from, on how we manage a return. If a customer, we sell products as well as services, so how do we return our products? Quite simply, we have developed this process. We can start right here. This is where it begins. Anyone can start it from these roles. So whether it's inside sales or outside sales, anyone can start it. Now what have I done? I've added some notes, some instructions. You can see the icon there. You can put in screenshots and say, here's what you need to do, user, to ensure that our RMAs are handled consistently and properly every time. Now, again, I'll show you in a minute why we get compliance, one of the extra steps we do. But you can see all the way down, step by step, and the functionality is you can just keep clicking back to your flow, back to the original document, and it's drilled down everywhere. You can modify your user notes and use time or binary or scientific or formula and do calculations of how much time does it take. We are now looking at our processes and actually getting time commitments in some of our stages, so we can start to set an expectation and saying, well, our RMA process should take no longer than 3 or 4 business days from end to end, but we're getting there. First, it's getting that handoff done correctly. I'm going to go back and show you how we do our process change. What I have done is, when I've mentioned about the true ITIL fashion, is that I have a board. In our ERP package, we have service tickets. If you're manufacturing, maybe you have work tickets or something, but whatever you use to hand up, to assign people work, I have that for myself, so that when somebody assigns me work, it means I need to either organize a meeting or I need to review the process and figure out what needs to happen next. This is the process that I have developed with the staff on how they can engage with the process and how they can update changes. So all they really need to worry about is this first step. They send an email simply to this email address, and it automatically raises a ticket assigned to me in our system. And I'm asking for just some simple information to give me something to go on to review the process. When the process is done, I have our coaches review with their staff at their weekly meetings, and people actually sign off, whether it's a new process we're developing or an enhancement or a change to a process or a version change. We have our users fill out these forms, name the process, date it, and then we also have them sign with this statement. And this is the critical statement right here, right? This is exactly what we're training them on all the time. It's about following the process, but being engaged as well. So follow what's documented and approved, but be engaged and manage those exceptions and raise those tickets. What we do in addition to that is when an employee has signed off on a process like this, that is added to their list of skill sets. So as a role that they are, whether they're inside sales, outside sales, or a field engineer or a manager, it is in our records on that employee that they have been vetted on this process and they are expected to know this process. When people sign their names, they're involved, and that has been a very, very helpful step. Let me get to
I would say from a supervisor's perspective, as you're grabbing that, Michael, as far as getting the staff to sign off on that, you probably all have folks in your organizations that might sidestep a process or skip steps in a process, or there might be a problem as far as because they're not aligning to what the organization has determined is the best way to execute certain tasks. And as a supervisor, it helps me being able to say, well, you're acknowledging here that you've been trained on this process, and you're also agreeing to follow it. And so if they go outside of compliance of that, then we have documentation from an HR perspective to go back and make sure that they are reminded of our expectations. So it's been very helpful.
Okay, and then I'll just wrap up just to show you one of our my pride and joys is our sales to project process. And it might look overwhelming and confusing, but I'll just kind of focus on the first couple of colors here. What we've done is we've matched our sales to project handoff process. This is where sales starts with a lead, and they have to build a statement of work and a big project quote, and there's a lot of engagement with solution design and engineering. So we had to figure out a way for the two different areas in the organization to work well together, to be able to agree that this is how we're going to request time and help and create a solution that we can offer a client. Now you'll notice, remember I told you out of the box those icons are just defaults, but look at the icons here at how different they all are and how much more visual this is, and you can add in any kind of notes and make it anything you want. These swim lanes that I've used actually represent our sales funnel within our our ERP system. And in there, you should be able to know that whenever anything is in one of those funnels, you'll know that your projects and your projects that you're quoting are in these phases. So it's really it works quite well together. But you can see that as we get drilled down into each stage, we've gotten quite down to a granular level. But keep in mind, this has been evolving. This is due to the fact that everyone is engaged and we're studying this together. I am driving these changes, but I am not making these up. These are all inputs from our staff and our managers combined. So I hope I've given you guys a taste of process in a small business and how we have taken a small business here at Mytech and we have implemented process management / engagement, and it is working very, very well, and we are just hitting the tip of the iceberg. But it's truly an enjoyable place to be for Mytech at this point. So thank you all for your time.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So if you put that last slide just to finish, if anybody does have any questions, you can definitely contact us.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Nate. We were going to have a call to action. So if you are going to follow up on this, pick a process and manage it. Just one, a simple one. But keep in mind that if you're going to do that, you're going to want to use a tool and make it accessible. But if you follow some of these simple steps, you will be able to manage your processes. And then here's your final slide, Nate.
Yeah, so I mean, most of you on the call know how to get a hold of us, but I always like to put that up as far as connecting with us if you have any questions. This has definitely been an advantageous addition to our organization, and I hope that we can share stories, and if there's any way we can help, we're happy to do so. So thank you, everyone, for your time today, and for those that are watching in the future, and thank you, Michael, for putting everything together and doing such a great job at Mytech. And have a great day, everyone, and hopefully for some of you, see you at Tech Pulse here in a couple weeks.
Thank you.